Hello, my beautiful ones. It's Lisa Turner here from Psycademy, specializing in human evolution and personal transformation. So today's Facebook Live is about mediumship and speaking and communicating with those who have passed over. Why you would use it, where you wouldn't use it, the limitations of mediumship, and what's even better. So one of the things we get asked a lot here in Psycademy is, can you communicate with my past soulmate or mother or father or child? And it's very heartbreaking when we can connect in with the pain that that person is in, because they want to get some kind of closure, some kind of connection to their past loved one. So the question really is how can you get closure? And is mediumship the best way? And what is mediumship anyway? And what works even better? So let's look at getting closure. So what is closure in a relationship? Well, when somebody we love passes, frequently what happens is obviously we feel sad because we love that person and they're gone. And sadness is the emotional response. So if we start with the idea of the only emotion is love, and anytime we label something as a negative emotion, what we're actually feeling is the lack of or resistance to love. So if you love someone and you experience them as no longer being physically present or no longer present because they're no longer in the physical form, sadness is that resistance to love. So you want to love them, but there's nowhere for the love to go because you have this belief or feeling sense that you can only love them when they're physically present. So first of all, when we recognize that that isn't the case, that you can love someone even when they're not in the physical form, the sadness starts to go. But I've slightly digressed here. So we get closure, or rather the lack of closure comes normally from something that you felt you didn't say to someone, or something that you felt you wanted to hear them say to you, but you didn't hear it. So people often seek out a medium in the hope that they'll connect with their past loved one who will relay the message, and hopefully it will be the thing you wanted to hear, and that when you say that thing, that you will have the experience of your loved one hearing it. But here's the problem. The emotional response. So let's take the point of something that wasn't said. So you wanted to say something, didn't get said. It feels like it's been left unsaid. So you might say it to the medium and say, can you pass this message on? But what if the medium doesn't give you back the emotional response that you were seeking as a result of saying that thing? What if you don't get that? Then you still don't have closure. What if when you hear the medium say the thing that you hoped would say, what if you still don't have that emotional experience because it hasn't come from your past loved one? Then you still haven't got closure. So why is it that mediumship doesn't necessarily give closure? So I'm going to explain that, and then I'm going to explain what does work instead. So when we communicate, so when somebody dies, their soul, their spirit, their spiritual body returns to source. Their physical body obviously disappears, dies. That's what death is, right? It's the death of the physical body. And then what happens is you have the emotional and mental body, or the personality, or the unconscious mind, ego part of the person stays around for a little while. Now, the idea is it would normally dissipate and also just disappear, because that personality is no longer necessary. It's no longer attached to the physical. The soul doesn't need the personality. So in the natural things, it would just dissipate. Now, sometimes that doesn't happen, and we would call this a ghost. And because it's either got some unfinished business, and it's not necessarily positive. In fact, it's nearly always not positive, or it's found some energy source to tap into. And guess what that energy source often is? It's often the person, it's the friends, the family, or some somebody that is willing to gift that entity, that person, energy. And it often ends up in a not very healthy relationship, a not very healthy way of being. Because the truth is, The personality of that person who's passed can never complete their business through you unless you allow yourself to become them, and that's not healthy for you. And even if that does happen, then they're still not going to get completion because they have no higher self to actually guide or have that experience, because the unfinished business is only at a personality level where it's never finished. So the ideal is the personality would dissipate. There would be no ghost. So when a medium taps into and communicates with somebody who's passed over, they are almost always only communicating with the personality, not the higher self, because the higher self will have returned to source. That's the natural way of things. Now, so the question then is why would you want to communicate with only the personality of that person? Now, if you've and I know lots of nurses, I know lots of from personal experience and my clients' experience of when somebody is near death in the physical form, frequently the higher self actually leaves or starts to leave even before the person dies physically. And so what you're left with is the ego and or personality of the person. So at death, you may have had this experience where people actually become they can become, I mean, if they're highly evolved as a personality, not that a higher self is always evolved, right? Even if they're higher, so unless they're really super highly evolved with no negative personality traits in life, in death, and in near death, when the higher self is left, they can be quite challenging to be around. And maybe you've had experiences that where someone's near death and they've actually become quite bitchy, quite angry, quite aggressive. And, you know, people will kind of rationalize it and, well, they're in pain or they're suffering or they're sad or they're angry about dying. And that may be true, but that's a personality response. And it's because it's untempered by the higher self. So a medium is only ever communicating with the personality. Now, I know this is controversial and I know people are going to post, no, God damn it, I was talking to the higher self of my mother. And as I say, this is like, sometimes that the higher self does come back, but it's rare. And the thing is, the purpose of the higher self, the purpose is to evolve. The person, the individual dies, the higher self returns to source so that it can evolve at its next level. So you calling it back for your personal need is actually not in everyone's highest good. So that's why I don't do mediumship. I don't talk to dead people. I invoke a highly evolved stream of consciousness that will support you and assist you to release your attachment and negative emotions around how you were relating to that person in life. So that's the limitation of mediumship. So what does work? So if you have a need, feel the need to communicate with, to speak to somebody who you loved and who has died, or you feel they want to talk to you, and you might be tempted to do that through a medium. If you're getting that sensation, if you have that experience, here's something that you can do that's even better. Identify, and this is what we do in Psycademy. We teach people how to do this on our spiritual practitioner training, and we actually do this in our free events and at our conference. So we find where is the resistance to love. So for a lot of people, after someone's died, there's sadness because they don't experience them as present, and that's not. And normally that sadness is they still have a need for them to be there. That unmet need is an emotional need, and we can release that using our spiritual technology. Then we also, another really common one is maybe there's anger, maybe there's hurt. Maybe you were hurt in that relationship and you want to let that person know. Again, release that emotion and you no longer feel the hurt, you no longer feel the need to connect with that person. Then also, guilt. Guilt is the feeling when you didn't give enough love. Release the guilt. Now, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, let's release the guilt. Now, you need a process, and that's what we do here in Psycademy. We have a process that enables that. So, but when those emotions are gone and any limiting beliefs around who that person was, who you are, who you were to each other, when that's all gone, and when you've also released attachment with another separate process where we've completely released the attachment and any sense of that personality being in your aura. Remember I said at the beginning, and I said, sometimes the ghost, the personality taps into and finds an energy source. That might be you, okay? That might be you, your aura, gifting that ghost, that personality energy, so that it can be maintained. So we completely release that, completely release negative emotions, completely release limiting beliefs, release that energy from your aura, and boom, almost like magic, there is closure. There is closure. And that's the way you get closure. That way, what happens is you still remember the person, and you still carry them with you, but only the positive higher self aspects, only the part of that relating to each other, that relationship that is, and that was and is pure love. So you will experience joy in the memories. And believe me, from personal experience and from the experience of working with hundreds and hundreds of clients and students, and my students' clients, this works. If you want to know more, come along to our conference, come along to one of our free events. We'll be demonstrating this at the free event, and I'll be actually taking everybody through a full emotional release of all negative emotions at the 3-day event, at the 3-day conference. So I'll pop a link to that in below. If you have any questions, even if you're listening on the replay, pop them in. I will be happy to answer them even later. Even if you're, even after I've gone and we're no longer live, because even when, like, in a funny way, Facebook Live is like, it's like even when I'm not live, I'm still alive and can answer your questions. It's like the medium. The Facebook is a medium. Alrighty, my darlings, till next time. Lots of love. Bye for now.